All right, what's up, everybody? This is Dominic D'Angelo of OneTrueSportTV.com and, hey, FourHorsemenNetwork.com, and we are back with Greg Gagne and Magnum TA. It is straight talk with the boss because guess who's the boss? It's Magnum TA.
It is
Magnum,
Magnum TA.
how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I've just been looking forward to this all week, and I was afraid we were going to have technical difficulties, and I was going to blame it on Greg if we did.
We almost did, and it wasn't because of Greg. It was because of StreamYard. StreamYard wasn't
I
cooperating,
didn't,
and
I didn't know if I'd get on there though. I wasn't sure.
yeah, great.
TA, how do you like being the boss?
You know, the boss always gets the check. That's how it works.
Oh, there we go. Yes,
Yeah, you have to check it out.
that's the name of the
let's
game.
hope the boss starts writing some out pretty soon.
Hey, there we go.
Man,
Well, the boss can lay some of his thoughts down on what we got today. We are live, guys, live on the FourHorsemenNetwork.com, live on One True Sport, the Twitter account, and then we're live on OneTrueSportTV.com. So if you have a question or anything you want to ask Greg or Magnum, feel free to use the super chat. That'll definitely get your question asked. But you can also just pop on in and ask a question, see if I see it. You can take the gamble, see what happens. But we got some good stuff to cover. Want to say hi to some people. CB, who's a regular, is always in here. He says, "What's up, guys?" We have the boss. Hey, there's another boss. Dom, make sure Greg tells his Andre the Giant story. There's a different boss in here.
I'm saving it for the end of the day. The end of the
Yeah, we're gonna get to Andre. We promise. I promise. Alan Bennett says hello. So we got some good crew. Maddie, who's all the way from New Zealand, says hello. I believe he's from New Zealand, so he's up early to say hi to us. But feel free to chime on in, and Larry as well. Hello, Larry. So, good stuff. Don't know if you guys saw it, but this past Tuesday, NXT's trying to charge up their brand a little bit because they're moving to the CW network. And in a big way, they're doing that, and they're getting CM Punk involved a little bit. And don't know if you guys got to see any of that exchange, but I thought his appearance was really, really good for the brand. Kind of elevated a lot of this younger talent and showed his passion for the wrestling business. Magnum, I know me and you've talked about CM Punk a little bit, and Greg, we've talked about CM Punk too in regards to your guys' relationship to him. But I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on CM Punk's knowledge for the business and what he can kind of contribute to the younger talent. Let's start with you, Magnum.
He's honestly one of the best storytellers, in this generation. I've watched him in different settings, and it doesn't matter if he's at an event doing some kind of special pregame, talk, or whether he's speaking passionately about the angle that he's in. He's just an absolute master at communication. And I go back and I look now, the one man sitting in the middle of the ramp, rants that he used to go on that were, very thought provoking because he's an intelligent guy. He's not just, someone that just talks with no rhyme and reason. So I think he's a great example for those kids in NXT. They can learn a lot from him, and I think it's really smart how they cross over back and forth. Have different people make appearances and whatnot because it elevates brand, and they've brought people over from NXT that are making a lot of noise, over on the main event shows. So, they just got really smart, forward-thinking people there that realize, that they're always investing in the future, and and they've got a great product. It's funny, they got their little snafus and things that happen on that show, which I find that unique because sometimes when things are just too perfect, you're like going, oh man, it's just like, they went and shot a movie and then showed it to us. But, I like to watch some of the little snafus that happen with the new guys, trying to, go out there and give it their all, and things happen. But, I think that's part of the game. But back to CM Punk, he was a great contributor to that segment. I watched the little interaction between him and the girl talent that
Roxanne Perez.
That was it was good because he knows how to make people, allow them to be in their lane and not feeling like he's got to hey, I'm CM Punk, you gotta be reverent around me, whatever. I mean, He really didn't take away from anybody, and he, to your point, I think he brought everybody up a notch by the rub, and just be out there and mixing it up and jousting with them a little bit.
Yeah. With Roxanne Perez, it was neat how they set it up because there's been a lot of questions of if she's been a good heel because she's so small, she's really talented, she's young, and a lot of people were questioning if her heel turn really was clicking. And I think her coming out there, interrupting Punk, and kind of fangirling at first, like acting like she was a huge fan. Oh, your wife is really what brought me in. I loved you and everything like that. But I wish I would have been a Drew McIntyre fan and like dropped the hammer down on him. And then, kind of fired back at him. And that, I think, really elevated her ability to convey a heel. I think he did up her game. He called out a lot of names in the back too, like put them over, put the fans over, just did a really, really nice job. Greg, did you happen to see that segment? And if not, though, I just want to get your opinion on who CM Punk maybe kind of reminds you of from his knowledge in the business and what he's kind of conveyed to you.
Well, I was fortunate enough to be down with Danny Davis and Al Snow, and they had CM Punk down there training him at the time. And I was sent down there, and I probably have told a story before where he was kind of struggling on his interview. He was pissed off because he didn't get called up to WWE. And, Vince, his theory was he liked guys that were like 230, 240.
Yeah.
And he never gave the smaller individuals an opportunity. And CM Punk was actually about my size. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, you got to get over that and don't even worry about that. Just do what you do best. And he was struggling on his interviews and he was mad at McMahon. And I said, go out there and just give me an interview about how you really feel about Vince McMahon and the opportunities you haven't had from him. And he did. And from that time on, and he kept that up, he really caught on. And eventually they brought him up, and as, not a big guy, but you don't have to be if you get the people to believe in what you do and who you are, and you can get them to relate to you. Smaller guys have a great opportunity because everybody out.
As I sit and listen to this story, now I realize that you probably unknowingly contributed to that 10-year hiatus he took.
You're the guy. You're the guy, Greg.
I didn't hear what you said. You got that damn beard. I can't read your lips.
Yeah, no. Dom got it because
I got
you put the seed in his head, of being outspoken and saying what you meant, and he took it so to heart that he took a 10-year sabbatical.
Because of you, Greg.
Yeah, and he blamed me.
Exactly.
He's like, you know what, Greg's right.
So I had nothing to do with his career. But no, he did a hell of an interview last week when he was talking about McIntyre.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to talk. Hollywood's again calling, or maybe it's Punk. Maybe it's Punk calling Greg right now.
Well, hey. My buddy Wacky. Hey, I'm on the podcast, pal. What timing you have?
My buddy.
We want to send you out to see somebody here pretty quick. I'll give you a rundown. Bye. That's Wacky.
That's Wacky. Is he in the wet wrestling business, Greg?
He's a collector.
He's a collector. Oh.
Not a figure collector. He's a debt collector.
He's a debt collector. He's coming after Greg.
Or whatever you need.
Oh, that's so funny.
Greg's got the Minnesota Mafia going down. Oh, my buddy Wacky's here. He's going to take care of business.
Come over and see you.
Come over and pay you a little visit.
Pay you a little visit. Yeah. Have anybody been watching Netflix? They're really pumping the show coming up September 25th with Vince McMahon.
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm.
And,
they are.
Well, this was funny. I had Laura watch some of it last night. I said, you got to come and watch this.
Uh-huh.
And because I've told her, over the stories that, what he was really like to work for.
Yeah.
And when she saw that, she said, oh, my God. Of course, she can't stand him, but.
So she watched the trailer, Greg? Did she watch the trailer?
Yeah, the trailers, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen them, TA?
Have you seen the trailer? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be, well, it's going to be good programming for Netflix. Bottom line.
Yeah,
A
that's
lot
what
of
it
people
is.
are going to watch it. A lot of people love to watch a train wreck.
Yeah.
And it's going to be one of those kind of stories. And is it going to hurt the the amazing thing the business is right now? Absolutely not. They're going to have anything
No.
to do whatsoever. If anything, it's just going to continue to elevate this new iteration that they've blossomed into. Without that tyranny thing that was going on there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'll watch it. I don't know if I'll watch all how many episodes of it that there is,
Yeah.
but it'll be a good watch. I mean, again, they're doing it for programming and for numbers, and there will be enough interested people.
They'll get that for sure.
They'll get it. So.
I love the job that Triple H is doing at the company right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, they are really back to great storytelling, and the matches have been terrific. I can see a big change from when Vince had it. To me, in being around him, Vince didn't really have a real respect for the talent.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about him.
Mm-hmm.
And Triple H, from being in the industry and starting at the bottom and working your way up from what we all did. I mean, I used to put up the ring, and I had to referee and drive the ring truck before they ever let me get in the ring. And you learn it was great because you learn about the industry from every part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, watching Triple H operate that's the way he is. And he gives everybody an opportunity and respects everybody in their positions. And, I think they're doing fantastic, and they're just going to keep it on the roll.
Well, Greg, when it comes to McMahon and his handling a certain talent and everything like that, did he have a certain respect and reverence for the business itself in a way that kind of okay, I do appreciate some of the legends that came their way and kind of paved the way for the business? Or was it kind of his way or the highway kind of thing?
It was his way or the highway,
okay.
Basically. He used to, when we'd go into an arena, we got the TV show coming up, he had everybody there, the production people, not the wrestlers, but Dusty Rhodes, Michael Hayes, myself, whoever the other guys were at that time. And then he would lay out, and he would get up in front of everybody and say, here's how this match, how I see it. And then he would ask everybody what they thought.
Uh-huh.
And 9 times out of 10, everybody, oh yeah. Well, he finally gets to Dusty, and Dusty says, no, I don't agree with that. I think it should go like this.
Mm-hmm.
And he nodded, and then he called me, and I said, well, I agree with Dusty. And I laid out, why I thought it should go this way. And it wasn't long after, but he took it all in, but he did it his way.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And eventually, I guess I just said too many things that he didn't like, because I was gone. But you know what? He didn't like to be confronted.
Right. Yeah.
He would lay it out. This is the way it's going to go. But what's your opinion? And then you give your opinion, and he didn't give a shit about your opinion. He's going to do it his way, which it's very successful for a long, long time. But at some point, operating like that, people aren't going to like you, and you're not going to get the best out of them.
Sure, it's like a walking on eggshells kind of deal, where it's you're in an ecoscape. Because I do hear mixed things. Like Vince would be receptive. He would almost want you to combat him back and be like, "Hey, no, this is what I think," and kind of be a little bit more abrasive when it comes to certain things. But
I don't know. I did that.
It didn't work too well. Didn't work too well for you, huh?
Maybe it was my presentation.
Magnum, how often did you ever cross paths with Vince, or?
Never worked for him one day, except for going and doing a pay-per-view for him. They had a Legends show. As a matter of fact, it's the fateful weekend when the Benoit whole fiasco took place.
Really? Wow.
I was in Texas on that pay-per-view, and Benoit was supposed to be there, and it was a no-show. And then we found out all the stuff that happened because they were there the next night, and that's when they did the one, like the 2-hour special, all about, before anybody knew what had really taken place. And
Yeah.
and so, I was around him there. I was around him at Dusty's funeral. He was very cool with me, but we probably didn't exchange 15 words, And had I, had the opportunity, to work for him as a talent, I'm sure it would have been a different relationship even yet, because I mean I had kind of a different take on the business because I'd come from the Eddie Graham, slash Bill Watts school of wrestling, and which was, kind of the old school deal. And I think I've told the story before, but when Andre gave me the name and dubbed me Magnum, his idea was for me to go to New York, and then Senior
Wow.
was still living, and that's where I was going to go and launch this Magnum TA, character. And so I may have, had a completely different career path, literally, had I followed Andre up and let him open the door for me, as he did. And I like I said, I think with talent that he could make money with, he probably had a certain amount of tolerance and a certain amount of things. But the minute
Sure.
someone fell out of his grace, something went wrong. I mean, he was totally enamored with the Ultimate Warrior, his first run, and it's like when it went bad, not so much like a business relationship, but almost like
Mm-hmm.
a personal relationship that went bad, and he was almost like jilted or something because the two of them had parted ways. So, I'm sure he had to be a very passionate man to invested himself just so wholeheartedly in the business. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't, if you can just take the blinders off and block off the the things that you knew went on behind the scenes. Because frankly, let's be brutally honest. If we could take back and go back in a time capsule, and from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and go all behind the scenes and capture all the things that took place, there's a whole lot of people that wouldn't be, revered or looked at the same or measured the same, if you could see that. So he's had the unfortunate, situation of finding himself in. Yeah, he made a lot of enemies along the way, male and female. And when that house starts falling apart, and all
Mm-hmm.
the things that you thought you'd quietly put behind you come out, it's horrendous. But again, I wouldn't
Right.
throw rocks, because I'm saying you could line 100 guys up and paint the worst picture imaginable if you could have captured, all the indiscretions and things that went on that were more than colorful, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
outside the ring.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting characters in pro wrestling, and
Mhm.
Vince McMahon's just one of them. But he's the
You
biggest.
know, you have to give Vince a lot of credit too. I mean, he went out on a limb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he
You
put a lot of
know,
risk on himself. On what?
yeah, he did. He put a lot of risk out there. And he wanted to do it his way, and he wanted to build. And they've built this empire that is second to none. It ranks right up there with the NFL.
Sure. Yeah.
And his vision, he brought it to life. There weren't. I don't think there was anybody else in the business at that time that could do that. There's guys that wanted to, but with their relationships with each other, the other promoters, they weren't going to step on each other's toes. And
Right.
Vince had no relationship with anybody, and he didn't give a who he stepped on or who he put out of business. He was going to do it his way. And in the long run, and I think about that a lot and look back, and he's taken wrestling to the level that we all wanted it to be, like
Right.
the NFL, and right in that category. And you have to give the guy credit for that, no matter what you think of him personally.
And you know what, Greg? I think what you kind of laid out there is like, he's kind of he created a lot of enemies, and Magnum, you said that too, and he's created all this, with certainly, whatever these allegations may be, and however that comes to fruition. But you kind of look at it from, he really did surround himself in a bubble on his own accord, where it's kind of like, okay, I'm in WWE, this is my world, this is my thing, and then he'd never branch out outside of like the outside elements. If you probably talked to him about sports, he wouldn't know anything about like the organized sports or anything when it comes to certain things like that. Whereas a lot of these other talents brought that in. Like you look at like a Jim Ross would always bring up somebody's football background, or like Vern was great at doing that too. I'm sure it's had a certain reverence for all that stuff. Whereas Vince was just in his universe. So him getting outed and booted out of the WWE, and you see what Triple H has been able to do, and bringing somebody, and Nick Khan got brought in too by both Vince and Triple H. His connections with the sports world and everything like that, it creates this whole new element. We see somebody like Joe Tessitore take over Raw as the voice for it and bring another element into it. So there's this outside elements coming into play into the WWE ecoscape, and I think that's kind of refreshed the brand in a lot of great ways that Vince was not able to do. So, very interesting stuff. Magnum, I wanted to follow up too with you when it came to now all this is hypothetical, obviously, and Vince had a certain impression, I think, of the Southern wrestlers and Southern wrestling when it came to an aspect of it all, like how he used Dusty Rhodes, how he used a lot of different talents that came from Flair country, quote unquote. Do you think he would have probably seen something in you to use you in the right way, or would you probably maybe have gotten shuffled into a category of like, it's a Southern wrestler and now this is it, kind of what I mean? Do you think that you kind of think on that?
And who knows? I mean, I think he would have used me right. Had I left from Crockett in the position that I was in, and, on the top of the world, basically for their organization, I think he would have used me right then, because it would have just been stupid not to. And I would have had, that edgy element that he was able to, take advantage of with Steve Austin, sooner. He would have had that element way sooner. I mean, I could see, walking on, his show and smacking the taste out of his mouth, day one, like on TV,
right?
Because that would have been very much the way my anti-hero character was going. Because I didn't have any time for, BS people, and he was certainly Captain BS. So it would, I mean, I can see all the, really cool things that could have come of it, and he had guys, like obviously Bret Hart, great technical wrestler, but not guys that had that edgy. Didn't have a lot of edgy guys that were in that range, that size range. Like I was, at 240, I could work with the 300 pounders, and I could still work with the 220 pounders, and have very believable, matches. And even as the fans wanted to see, Hogan and I, back at that time, it wasn't even Flair and Hogan. I got a magazine still floating around the house here somewhere where they put he and I transposed our pictures on Nose to Nose.
Did you write that article?
Back in '86, yeah, and it would have been a clash of styles, but differently than Flair was still in the eyes of that group more of a drop kick, backdrop technical kind of wrestler, and I in getting into that brawling type style, which is what the WWE universe, really thrives on. That they think somebody's really going to kick somebody's ass, they get excited about that. So, I think it would have had a shot. But to your point, like you look at guys like Barry Windham. Barry Windham, one of the greatest technical wrestlers ever put on a pair of boots, and never had a good run in the WWE, not one time.
Yeah,
and did had some of the arguably best world title matches with Flair that I've ever personally seen, because guys that are 6'6" and got all that real estate to work with and being athletic on top of it, and they can go for 60 minutes or money, and because they're programming up there wasn't geared to those long matches. You had to be able to tell that story in 8 to 15 minutes, probably max. And we in the South, did. We had the best of 7 series with Nikita. We had a lot of 45-minute matches, and you didn't have those luxuries, up there. But I would have liked to seen what I could have done with that kind of machine plugged in behind me, because it was so obvious that was the missing element within the Crockett in the NWA organization. It was too tied to the past and all the old relationships. It wasn't embracing all the corporate things that they could have been capitalizing on and tapping into to get us that other exposure.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been really interesting to see you kind of what happened, like if they did get a hold of you around that time where like Hogan was still Hulkamania was going crazy and all that stuff, but then it was kind of waning at that point into what you were saying with the Ultimate Warrior, how Vince kind of wanted to really hitch his wagon on him as the next big guy. It would have been pretty cool to see maybe what you would have done. You would have offered obviously a different look and feel and identity than what the Warrior was doing at the time too, than like, what was being conveyed. So yeah, that's a really interesting perspective to kind of think about. Fun stuff. What I also wanted to talk about, and you mentioned Triple H, Greg, and all that stuff, and we praise him up and down and almost every week because of the work he does and everything. But I did happen to I co-host the show with Rob Van Dam, who was on SmackDown this past Friday, and he mentioned how the energy he was there felt a lot different. He said it felt so refreshing in regards to when he was there and the locker room and the in-ring work. He watched the match, the tag match between Kevin Owens and Randy Orton against A-Town Down Under, and he was saying, and he was like, it really felt like such a new, refreshing kind of vibe there, he said, and then spoke too of how everybody seemed happy in the locker room and how what else did he say? Oh, nobody seemed tired, he was saying, like backstage. And typically, like he was talking about the arduous schedule that he used to have when he was in WWE and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So I think, Greg, it really speaks to the ecosystem and the environment that Triple H has cultivated there and the team that he's brought around.
I mean, because he experienced it all.
Sure.
Vince never experienced what it was like being on the road and, going night after night after night. And being in the ring and have to be up every night and produce, an A+ match.
Yeah.
Triple H knows how to do that. He learned how to do it. And he respects the wrestlers. And I'm sure they bounce ideas off of each other. That's the way we used to do it. Bounce them off, and then Vern would formulate it for you. And it's a good feeling to be in the locker room then, and it's a good feeling to go out and have the kind of matches they're having now and the production that they have. It's phenomenal, and you have to say, he's the guy responsible for it. Mm-hmm. He's done an excellent job.
Yeah, very.
And I would have loved to have been able to get a match against Magnum TA.
Ooh, man. I would have liked to see that too. Greg, we've said this before.
I had to turn them real quick.
Uh-oh. Greg, you would have been a great heel. Fantastic heel. You already are a great heel right now.
Oh, yeah. I tell it like it is. If they don't like it, who cares?
Who cares? Well, hey, I do need to note again, guys, Magnum, you were bringing the ladies in again this week. We have Patty in house. She says, I'm still a huge Barry Windham fan. Yeah, Barry, you can't beat Barry Windham. We have Cindy here. Cindy, I saw another, and then I saw another gal in here too, I think, too. Maybe not, but that's...
Well, you say me, but I've seen those pictures you've been posting on Instagram.
Oh, you think it's me? No.
You've been showing them the flex, and you've been, putting that work in the gym. There's some, I bet you there's some little dumb girls out there.
Though, I am the constant on some of my other shows. I don't see any ladies in the chats with the other shows I'm in. So Magnum, you and Greg, I think, are the ladies' men for this show.
I think it's Greg. I think Greg's got Laura working behind the scenes, getting her girlfriends to get online.
No, I never participated in that. Laura's around the corner.
Yeah. No.
Boy,
No,
I didn't, Laura, really.
Yeah, you're a founding father.
living the
Participate.
Greg Gagne living the gimmick right here.
Oh my goodness.
Boy. Well, we got a few good questions here in the chat. I already started. Let's start with let me see. Oh, here we go. Larry has an interesting one. Greg, how was Dr. X, Dick Beyer, to work with?
I never was in the ring against him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I watched him. I mean, he was as smooth as you could be. You know, it's hard for the mask guys to really create an atmosphere that's believable, you know, in the ring. But he could do it with that mask on. A lot of mask guys, you know, they don't show their expression. And if they don't show the body expression with it, you know, they just are so. But no, Dr. X, Dick Byers was phenomenal. He was a magician in the ring.
How about that?
Either way, too, which was, you know, unusual.
Nice. Well, Magnum, we kind of talked about the hypotheticals. CB has one. I think we probably talked about this before, too. Magnum, do you think you would have ever turned heel in the NWA one day? And do you think it would have worked?
You know, it obviously, you know, could have, but my career path and what I had envisioned was I wouldn't have been around long enough because I didn't want to work past 30 in the business. So I don't know.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, I wanted to have my run with the world title, do my thing, and I wanted to drive NASCAR.
No kidding.
That's right.
Yeah, so I wanted to drive NASCAR from 30 to 40 and then go do action movies.
Damn.
That was my plan. Obviously, that didn't work out too well, but it was a heck of a plan.
But
it was a good plan.
GA, once you started wrestling, though, didn't it get your blood that you want to keep doing that?
No.
Really?
No.
How about that?
Because here's the thing. So, and I had originally thought that, but I drove Benny Parsons NASCAR at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it was the most exhilarating experience of anything I've ever done, ever.
Wow.
Made everything. I mean, being in the middle of that car, going 200 miles an hour around an enclosed course, was the exhilarating thing I've ever done. And I wanted to, you know, reach the pinnacle and accomplish the goal of wrestling, but I wanted to, you know, I wanted to take that path, and it was a real tie-in because this was back in the day before Tim Richmond even came into being, back in the 80s, and NASCAR and wrestling fans were very close knit. Like, you know, that was a piece of Americana. They were very close knit, and when they found out that I was interested, then they were very interested because it's all marketing, it's all business. You know, I mean, you know, they can put you. You know, you talk about a work. You know, they can put you in a car and give you the best car, and yeah, you got to be able to drive, but you've also got to be able to talk. You got to be able to interview. You got to be able to do those things to make the fans want to come down there to see it. And you know, it's just like, you know, Richard Petty, you know, the winningest, you know, driver of all time. But back in that day, you know, he was infamous for coming over the line in Florida and blowing the motor up. You're on the last lap, so they couldn't take it and check it out, right? You know, because they you know, they knew how to give people a little bit of an advantage to go do something. And I'm not saying it's not a straight up competition, but I'm just saying anytime you're not playing for trophies and ribbons and there's money involved, there's ways that you can manipulate things. And when it becomes a business, it is just that. It's a business for somebody. And NASCAR was, you know, like I said, looking for the next young guy to come in and do it. And I'll never forget when I put on Benny's suit. I put on his actual driving suit, and I'm 6'2", 240, and he and I are about the same height, and we weigh about the same, but proportioned a little differently. they gave him a hard time. They said, "Yeah, Betty, that's what that's supposed to look." It was like,
you filled it out a little bit better.
but again, it was chapters of things to do, and I didn't ever want to be one of those guys that couldn't find a graceful exit. I wanted to be looked at in the best shape of my life, doing what I enjoyed doing, and looking the best I could doing it. And I didn't think guys, honestly, anybody that was over 35 years old really had any business dancing around in their daggone tights in front of thousands of people, whether they were chanting your name or not. It just, to me, it was a little absurd. And honestly, I still stick to that. I'd rather. I hate that I had this career-ending accident and all this stuff, but I'd rather be remembered the way I was in 27 years old and in shape, rather than have to look at some of the things some of the guys, unfortunately, get to see themselves on YouTube today in less than ideal circumstances and not the best that they once were. And that's just me. Maybe I'm just being selfish.
Go, Laura just handed me a cup of water here. She's back, and is she looking hot today? Woo!
I bet she appreciates that.
She gets so pissed off when I do that.
I bet she does, Greg. Gee, really?
There she goes.
Well, so Magnum, the bug for you was more behind the wheel than it was in the ring. Like you got kind of your fix going around the track than you did more so being.
Yeah, and I wanted to be a world champion in that. I wanted to do that. I grew up in Chesapeake, Virginia. Ricky Rudd was from Chesapeake, and he was a well-known driver back in the day. I had befriended after Benny let me drive his car. I befriended the people with U.S. Tobacco that owned the Copenhagen car, and it was all the doors were starting to open up to give me that opportunity. I mean, they'd already talked to me about going to the driving school, and because they had a NASCAR driving school, and seeing what I thought of that experience. And Jimmy Crockett was having a cow. I mean, but you remember that guy Hal Needham, right?
When you were driving the car, you can't hear the crowd at all, though, can you? I mean,
crowd.
Those cars are so loud.
That motor screaming 8,000 RPM.
You got the helmet on, you can't hear that.
Yeah.
So you get the same, when you're in the ring and you get that crowd really involved in the match, and you get that
more adrenaline than I got from wrestling.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. It's the most realist, crazy, physical feeling that for me, it defies logic. You're going so fast that your mind tells you that you're going to die, that you cannot go around a corner as fast as those bank corners will allow you to go.
How fast were you going at that time, you think?
200.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And you hit that corner and it pulls 3 G's in the corner. And when you feel, if you can imagine being a ball on the end of the string and somebody spinning it around, that's the inertia is so great that I told Benny when I got out, I was like, I was like sweating there, and I said, how do you relax to not want to rip the steering wheel off, controlling the car? And he said, every time you get in the car, it takes 15, 20 laps to get in a rhythm to get like loose and not like over, because that's why you see those guys so tight up on the steering wheel. They've got their arms bent up. Everything's ergonomic, how they don't get cramped and everything driving those things. It's not like you're driving back here like you can't,
right
in lean mode, and it is. I'm sure.
Did you get scared at all?
No.
I mean, at 200 miles an hour.
But back then, I didn't. I thought I was Superman. This was before I crashed, so I didn't have to get hurt. So I thought I was just
right. You took a corner at 200 miles an hour, huh?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Well, I was probably going slower than that. That was in the straightaway, so I was probably only 180 or something around the corner.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean,
No wonder you were fined.
no, but again, those guys are athletes, and the guys that really the young guns that came along, the Jeff Gordons and all the guys that came along, those guys, you had to be an athlete to sit in that car for 3-4 hours,
Oh, Jesus.
perspiring, sweating, and driving in that and feeling that G force pull on your body the whole time is like it's like nothing I've ever experienced, ever. And you think how hard we worked to try to be at the top of the wrestling game. And Dusty and I we had this conversation often about we wondered what else we could if we put as much effort as we were putting into wrestling, thinking about it 24/7, getting ready for the next day, the next big event. If we put all that same energy into some other endeavor, we were always wondering how successful we might be doing something completely out of our wheelhouse, something that we were currently doing. Of course, Dusty wanted to be, Cecil B. DeMille's and direct movies. I mean, hands down, that's what he wanted to do. And wrestling was obviously a passion and avenue you had. But if you could have, gave him a magic wand, short of him being Marlon Brando and being the star himself, he would have loved to have been behind that camera creating magic and, things like Steven Spielberg and doing all that kind of jazz.
Let's make some jaws, baby. I want to talk to a throw about shock.
Yeah.
Man, how about that then? So I had no idea. I didn't know. I knew Dusty was creative minded, and he talked about like doing movie stuff with you, but I had no idea he wanted to be like a director and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that was his vision. I mean, before there was WrestleMania, there was Starrcade. Starrcade was the first. It was his brainchild that was created driving up and down the road in Florida. Thinking about a Super Bowl event for wrestling, and so he conceptualized that long before it played out, with the WWE. And, I just, when you think about the woulda, shoulda, couldas, if Vince's ego could have stayed in check to work in harmony with Dusty, if Dusty had been in that spot there and had the juice of the WWE behind him, the game would have been over way before it was over. They would have annihilated everybody so quickly. It would have been horrifying. I mean, and everybody would have been flocking there to want to work there because because that Dusty had that means of creating the good locker room, the good atmosphere, the people feeling pride in their product and what they did, and gave people accolades for their hard work, but always encouraged them like a coach because he came from sports, came from football, came from baseball. So he knew how to encourage people. And the polar opposites of that were people that would be demeaning, like Vince would have the capacity to be in, like Bill Watts, who I love to death, could just make people feel like absolutely crap if you would allow, and it would be could be a depressant type, experience to be in that world. I've heard countless people talk about the territory, and it wasn't because of the long, hard trips and all the things. It was because, you had a mega type A personality that was very brilliant, very smart, very driven, and he was a coach too, but he was a completely different style. He taught me a lot. I'll never take away anything from the experience in Mid-South because I'd have never been ready to do what I did in the NBA without Bill, being the way he was with everybody and listening to him talk for a year and a half. He brought that real hardcore side out in me, but a lesser person could be crushed by it and never find their potential and find that way. That's why it's for the same reason I try to have patience for the AEW because, I've laughingly called that the land of misfit toys because they've embraced so many people that would have never got an opportunity in the business had they not created that universe. And that world.
Right.
I mean, we wouldn't know who Darby Allin was if you put a gun to our head. If it had not been for, for them or Orange Cassidy and guys that truly, have talent, but would have never have gotten a forum. So you got to take all those things in consideration. Nothing's just black and white. Vince, one of the biggest contributors to what we now enjoy ever in the history of the business. A saint, absolutely not. And I almost feel like inadvertently he's bearing the sins of an entire decadent generation and having it just aired out. Because I promise you, is wild and horrendous, and oh my gosh, is those 60 pages or whatever that thing was, that I could probably name 20 people right off the top of my head that could fill a dossier to make him look like a choir boy.
Oh my gosh.
So there's that.
Okay, Neil.
How about that? How about that Andre story?
My goodness. Well, I think it is pretty fascinating too, the outside, all those elements that come into play. You think about how closed up Vince was, but how kind of the mindset he had for the global aspect of the business and building it out and making it pop culture mainstream. But then you speak about the hard nosedness of Bill Watts, who, had a sports background, but if you weren't under the understanding of how he operated, and maybe not in the understanding of how organized sports work, and sometimes how cruel sometimes that can be, being under that landscape, you might not have survived there. But then you have somebody with a creative mindset like Dusty, who has these like movie kind of outlook things and ways to market yourself and build yourself. It's just like you get to pick and choose from all these guys, and you see how this wrestling business became what it is in a lot of ways. And that's just a really, really neat Magnum. That is why you're the boss, I think, is because of those kind of perspectives. So gotta say it.
Where
really
does that make me, a secretary?
You are the assistant manager, Greg. Assistant manager Greg Gagne.
Gotcha.
Greg brought me to the dance. Greg doesn't have to prove anything.
I'm the Bobby Heenan.
You're the Bobby Heenan. Yeah. I'm just the news boy. I'm the what is
You're
it?
the weasel. You're
the mail
weasel.
boy. I'm the
You're
weasel.
You're the weasel.
I'm in the mail room, just sorting stuff out here.
No, it's a good combination.
It is. ATF Media has an interesting thing. He says, I rode passenger seat of a NASCAR truck, and it's not comfortable to not have control of the wheel of the pedals while driving at 150 miles an hour. I could believe that.
No, sitting in that seat, you would need probably a tranquilizer, and I did that. I sat down in the roll cage with no seat in it and held onto it and rode around there with Benny Parsons driving at Mach 7. No seat belt, no seat, holding on to a roll cage, going 200 miles an hour. And honest to goodness, again, it was a different era, different time, whatever. But that sport and that business, it is, they've got more safety built in it today, obviously, than ever. But it's still there's that element. There's still that element of you're doing something dangerous. I don't care how you look at it, when you're going that fast, running this close to a wall at that kind of speed, and you got every safety device known to man. Dale Earnhardt, who was my just hero. We lost him because he wasn't wearing, a Hans device, and probably could have survived that crash he had had it on. But if you could look back at the history of that sport from Junior Johnson all the way up and all that, this heritage of that, there's a lot of rough, tough, rugged men that made and built that industry, just like the wrestling business. No different. They happen to be behind the wheel of a car, but they were out there wrestling it and fighting it for hours at a time in horrible heat, horrible situations. Sometimes they got a bologna sandwich and a pat on the back and an RC Cola, and sometimes they got nada. But they were out there again to do it the next week if they could get together enough money to, make another round. And that thing's magic. It's just no two ways about it. It's special. See, I could have been I'm 65, so I could have been retired from that for like 25 years by now.
Right? Man, how about that? And you're right though too. It's like you think about all those characters, like, and it really depended on a lot of the personality of the people, like Dale Earnhardt or Gordon or Jimmy Johnson now, or like I'm just Richard Petty, obviously, guys like that all coming into play and having that really created a whole new kind of thing to latch onto with NASCAR and stuff too. So, man, pretty neat stuff. Patty says Vice President Greg Gagne. How about that, Greg? Do you like that title?
Vice President of what?
Of behind the boss.
Oh, behind the boss.
Yeah.
Exactly.
VP
All right.
Operations. VP Operations there.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll do a couple more questions and then we'll close it on out here. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Cow Palace Dave. He's from San Francisco, so that makes sense. He says, when is Greg going to write a book about the AWA? Greg, are you going to write a book?
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
There's a fellow out of Kansas, Brian Ferguson, just finished a book on Vern Gagne.
Oh, really?
And that in fact, this week I have to help write the foreword for it with a guy named George Shire, who was a historian.
I know George.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So George's going to help write it, and we'll see what it does. It's hard to me. I mean, you put so much effort into it, so much time into it, and to get it out on the market and make it worthwhile, very few of them make it.
Sure.
And when you look at the wrestling history now, I mean, we're past our time, and McMahon doesn't keep alive the people that built this industry when it first went on TV in the 50s, and that's what we're trying to do with Power Town. But when you try to put an action figure of a Lou Thez or a Yukon Eric out there, you have to put in there a Magnum TA and a Dusty Rhodes and a
Ric Flair, whoever,
that. So they remember them because the history has been lost with McMahon of wrestling. The new people today, all they know is the WWE, and that's all they'll ever know. And maybe some will AEW.
Right.
But and that's why it was important to me when Steve Rosenthal called and said, "Would you like to get into the business of action figures?" And I said, the only way I do it is we're going to represent the people that built this industry up to the current people we've got in. And we had a big signing. Just, in fact, it should be finished today. And I suppose Magnum doesn't want me to say who it is.
You know what? You could tell them.
I can?
Whoa.
Yeah, you can tell them.
All right, Greg, let's hear it.
Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff.
Whoa. How about that?
Yep.
Man.
We've had a really a pretty good run here in the last few months of some really well-known talent that's coming over because they've seen our product. It's a great product.
It is.
And TA has done a phenomenal job working with Steve Rosenthal on this, keeping the business part of it going. I handle the talent and I've fielding quite a few calls lately, but we're moving forward, and down the road it's going to be a really strong company for the people that we represent at Power Town, the wrestling people.
Absolutely. That's great. So Paul Orndorff, part of Power Town. That should be very interesting. I'm excited to see what comes to fruition with that, guys. That should be a lot of really, really cool. Cool. Magnum, anything else you want to talk about with Power Town when it comes to what fans can expect or anything in regards to that?
Just that we've got four lines of product that have already been pre-sold that are in various stages of the production pipeline, and it is a monster when you're dealing with a factory that's on the other side of the world. That we're a specialty group, so when we make things, like typically 10,000 or less, and they're used to making things for for retail. They go in Targets and Walmarts and things like that where they're making 40 and 50 and 100,000 things at a time. So every time we do something, we've got to get our place in line in the production cycle of this big company who is fantastic, but they have to shut down, complete something else they're doing to run our piece. And frankly,
Right.
they're great partners because if Steve hadn't had the 40-year relationship with Lucky A that he has, we wouldn't have been able to find somebody that basically had to partner up with us. Not that we weren't paying them to do what they're doing, but they could make so much more money doing something else with somebody else in the same period of time. And they believe in what it is that we're doing, and that we're on the cusp of some things that could be really amazing. And frankly, what this has done is opened up other avenues for things outside of restaurant that are going to be doing. And the success of these other things, part and parcel, will really give us the opportunity to do things that Greg and I really want to do to begin with, because we need some big time things going on to be able to enable us to finance all this. Because basically, my dream of all this is just to go ahead and make a limited run of all the people we represent. No
Right.
pre-sale, no nothing. Just make them and have X number of them available. Sell them when they're done. Guys get a payoff. They get the recognition, and go on about our way. But we've got to have another big time machine thing going on side by side of it to make that kind of investment make sense. Because just to give you an inkling to do what we did with, say, Ultra Series 1 on the front side, you're talking a couple $100,000 investment to make all that happen. So you invest the same thing to do 10,000 pieces that you would if you were doing 100,000 pieces. So the subject matter, you really invested in something from the heart, because it doesn't have the capacity because it's not a current relevant thing in the world. We're trying to do something to memorialize people being around and give them their due.
Right.
And you've got to have something running along parallel to it that will really, keep the machine healthy, keep the business model healthy. Because again, my dream is to get out of the pre-sale business. I don't want I want to say, hey, this is what's going to be available on X date. And if you want it, you better get it quick, because there's only a limited number. And when they're gone, they're gone. And that's the way, I want this piece of it to be. And again, you got to be able to fork that money out in a large number to do it. And if Greg would have dug up a few more of those tin cans in his backyard and popped out about $50 million for things up, we'd have been all good.
I got a big wedding coming up. My daughter's getting married October 5th. And
you dug up the rest of your cans.
That old box is looking pretty empty when I open it up.
Yeah.
God almighty.
But anyway, that's my Power Town story, because it is going to be 25 is going to be our biggest year yet. We're going to deliver everything we've got in the pipeline, and we've got a big announcement that'll be coming out probably before Thanksgiving about our next really, really big thing that's coming. And I'll probably let Greg make that announcement so he doesn't pop.
You've been working on that one. That's your announcement to me.
But we're moving in some real positive directions, and we've got, like I said, every day I'm thankful for my old friend Greg, because if he hadn't called me up one day to say, hey, what you doing? How about this? How's this sound? I don't know what I've been doing the last 2.5 years.
How about that?
Now he's working 2 jobs.
Now he's got 2 jobs. The boss is the boss of 2 jobs now.
Jesus, only the boss can do it.
Only the boss can manage it, and Greg is the facilitator.
Is there something we can go online here? If anybody wants to donate to a wedding coming up, I could really appreciate it.
You can run a GoFundMe for your daughter.
Oh, Jesus, it hit me hard. Woo.
Holy smokes. Well, guys, maybe if you do want to help out Greg Gagne or Magnum TA, go to onetruesport.com. You can buy some merchandise that we got for these guys. We do have, I don't have pictures yet of it. I'll get them next week for us. But they have hoodies now. Zip-up hoodies for Greg and Magnum. Yeah, they look nice. We got the high flyer version, Greg, for, look at you, man.
Look at that old face under there.
Intimidating. But here's some T-shirts. So we got the high flyer version of Greg there. We got the Heart of a Champion, and then his tag team high flyers T-shirt too. Go to scan that QR code if you're watching, or you can go to onetruesport.com and check out also Magnum stuff. Magnum TA, Terry Allen, the boss of Chesapeake, Virginia. We got America's team. We got the classic Magnum TA logo, and you can also get that classic Magnum TA logo on the hoodie too. A zip-up hoodie looks really badass. So scan that QR code there and go and check out Magnum stuff. Help out the guys. Help Greg's wedding out. Please do something for him here.
Please.
Yes.
Send in donations.
Send in donations. Yes. Do something.
Gagne Foundation, Wedding Foundation.
Do what you can. And guys, we got some good news here, some big news here this week coming up. I kind of teased it before the past couple of weeks, but we will be back in audio form, so you'll be able to listen to this show on a podcast feed along with Arn Anderson's show. We'll be on the same feed together. Just keep your eyes peeled out for the announcement there. We'll get this episode up on there for you guys. We'll get Arn's latest episode on there. And happy birthday to Arn, by the way, today, too. It's Arn's birthday, so how about that?
Happy birthday, Arn.
Happy birthday, Arn. So, guys, if you want to hear us, you're sick of seeing our faces and you just want to listen to us, you can do that on the audio feed upcoming. So be on the lookout for that. As far as anything else goes, be sure to follow Magnum TA on Twitter at The Real Magnum TA. You can also follow him on Instagram at Magnum_TA. Follow Greg Gagne at Gagne.Greg on Instagram. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Dominic D'Angelo. So there you go, guys. It should be
there you go.
What a fun episode. Covered a lot of ground. CM Punk, Vince McMahon.
Send in the donations.
NASCAR. We got Greg's wedding happening. Man, we can't. What a celebration we're all going to have. And we thank everybody along for the ride. Yes.
You're all invited.
All invited. How about that? Wow. Open invite, guys.
October 5th. Circle it.
Circle it down. You do got to donate, though, to Greg.
Could be my last day on this earth.
Help him out, guys. All right. We'll see you next week here on Straight Talk with the Boss. Magnum TA and Greg Gagne.
So long.